4 minutes. Okay.
Got me timer.
We've got one, yeah.
All right.
Use that one.
Just to keep us right.
How do I use that one?
Sorry, I've got a dodgy throat. I'll try my best to get through it. I've just got this mask on because I've got a viral infection. I don't want to infect everybody. Right, I'm starting. I'm speaking on behalf of residents who came to me and asked me to object to this planning application. As I looked through their concerns, I found no less than 17 separate reasons to object, and I submitted an objection letter with 12 full pages of text. So I can't possibly cover all of those points in 4 minutes, so I'm just going to concentrate on a couple of areas. However, if you want to know more, you can ask me questions, because there's no limit on questions. Residents, the first area is highway safety. Residents are worried about a number of dangerous elements in relation to the proposed entrance to the housing development and its proximity to the junction of Front Street and Rectory Lane. And I've just got one example. Now, since the permission in principle was granted, we've had a change in the law. Now, pedestrians have right of way over drivers. So this means that if a car is turning right, not left, out of Front Street and coming up Rectory Lane to enter Chase Park, and there are pedestrians in the entrance or crossing, they have to give way. They have to stop suddenly. Now normally there's a few cars coming around together when the lights turn right and there's a filter to right. So this is more dangerous than it was when permission in principle was granted. And the car might not have enough time to stop, causing an accident. There's more pedestrians using the park more than ever. We've got new equipment, we've now got a cafe in the park as well. All of that's increased use. So residents are saying that if the application is granted, there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety. However, the only way to get a good idea of this is to go and have a look yourself. Now I know there was a site visit as part of the permission in principle, but we have new members on this committee who haven't seen that. Now the second area is to do with non-compliance with previous decisions. Now just a little bit of background. In June 2015, the Heritage Lottery Fund awarded funding to the Friends of Chase Park and Gateshead Council to improve the park. So as part of that, there was 2 conditions made by the Heritage Lottery Fund. These conditions were addressed in the permission in principle application, but they've been lost in this new application. So the first thing is to do with maintenance of the park. So the park needs to be maintained to green flag status for a period of 6 years following the completion of the project. To do this, the council needs space for the service vehicles to access the park. And this was covered in point 9 of the development framework of the permission in principle, which is part of the planning application. However, that's been lost in this application. This space is now designated as an area for refuse collecting lorries. The second condition is that as part of the HLF project, 2 disabled bays were put in place. Now, there is supposed to be public access to this. Yes, thank you, I've got that. There is supposed to be public access for this, and I don't know why there's a bollard in there blocking public access, but that was put in place as part of the HLF project. Contrary to what it says in the second last point of the Highways report for this application, these were not associated with the adult day centre. The centre had closed long before these were introduced. These were introduced as part of the HLF project. Again, the permission in principle included these, but these have been lost in this new plan application. Again, the space is now designated as a turning area. Now, my understanding is that the Heritage Lottery Fund objected to these proposals, but also for the fact that the historic gateway was going to be altered as well. And it's also my understanding that the HLF could reclaim all of the grant that it's awarded if its conditions are not adhered to.
Okay, great. Questions?
Yeah, just on the HLF funding, you mentioned 2 points on that, on those conditions. The first being the maintenance of the park for the green flag, which was 6 years. Do you know when that funding was completed and when those 6 years would start from?
So the decision was made in the Cabinet meeting on the 15th of September 2015. So a decision was made then to accept the money from HLF. The project started in January 2017. That's when works moved on to the site, and the works were completed, the main works, in September 2017. However, the project wasn't finished then, because what happened was there was other things that needed to be done, and I think the last thing that was completed was the time capsule, which was 2 years later. So by my reckoning, there's still another 3 years to run on that, and we've just managed to re-get the green flag status again for Chase Park this year, and that's just happened.
I'm interested in a follow-up on that. On the disabled bays that you have said have got bollard, are you saying they've already got a bollard, or this is part of the plans?
No, so what's happened is that as part of the HLF project, they wanted to increase access to the park. So they were keen to have disabled access. So they put in 2 bays, or it was paid for from the HLF project money. And they're right at the top of the, well, here, here, set plan. Now, so what's happened then is that since then, and I don't know why this has happened, I think it's the council that's done it, but I don't know who in the council. There's a bollard somewhere down here, which they put in. Now, that's been put in place. When it was first done, when the project was first completed, there was access up to these disabled bays here, and people were using that. But I think there was some abuse of that, so the council decided to put the bollard in to stop that. However, the principle was that the HLF have given us money to put in disabled access to the park. And now, this area here is the area that's going to be the bin turning circle. And the provision on the development framework, you can see quite clearly, well, you can from there probably, but sorry, it was here. So it's point 9 on the permission and principle development framework, which says potential space is required for park maintenance vehicles and disabled bays. So it's quite clear that this committee has already approved permission in principle, and any development needs to comply with that. However, what I'm saying is that this new application doesn't cover those points. And
I suppose the last sort of, it might be a question, it might be a point, I'm not sure, so stop us if I'm wrong, Chair. I'm just a bit confused about the objection of highway safety, whilst also arguing that we want to keep additional bays. So if we've already approved as part of the HLF funding 2 bays that are able to be regularly used, I'm assuming that was also signed off by highway safety. So I just want to clarify, do you think that 4 more dwellings will increase it to such an unacceptable point with the widening of the bays, even though the disabled bays have been put there and signed off as part of the funding that you've mentioned? Is that the problem?
Well, it's not what I think, it's what residents are asking me to represent. So what they're saying is that this junction, it's not there anymore, the junction here, so this is where the access is coming in. If you're coming down this way, it's not so bad. If you're coming up from Front Street here, I think Councillor Patterson's talked about the scenario where you're turning left, indicating left, but then you're turning into here, so it's confusing. You cannot indicate left again to say that you're coming in. So drivers will be confused with somebody following this, of what's going to happen. If you're coming in the other way, you're coming in because the lights have changed, the right-hand filter has changed to the right-hand side, and normally 4 or 5 cars come around together. If they're coming around this way, they're indicating right, then left. If there's people in the entrance that have to stop suddenly, here, you can see there's not much space for 4 or 5 cars to stop. And that's what people are saying are dangerous. That's just one example. So the 2 separate points which people have asked me to represent. Whether that's connected or not, I don't know, that's for you to decide.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello. The stables themselves, they're falling in disrepair and getting vandalised. Is there, if these houses, if planning wasn't granted, is there a plan to do anything with that area anyway? Because if it's just going to get vandalised and get worse, that's not going to be beneficial to the park either. So if the planning permission wasn't passed, what would be the idea to renovate those stables? Is there anything in place as another viable alternative that would improve that part of the park?
So, I didn't talk about that, but I'm happy to answer it.
Go on, you can.
So, in my understanding, there have been several schemes put forward over the years for use of that block in that area. I've been involved in some of those. Councillor Moran's been involved in others. Everything from putting a football team based there and using the compound area for an outdoor pitch. That was the first idea. Then there was Groundworks wanting to move in there when they came out of Lockley Hill, who were looking for a base. The RSPCA were looking to use that as a base as well. The Friends of Chase Park were interested in taking on that area as well, and then developing that and putting a cafe in the old stable block. So yes, there have been discussions over the years. However, they haven't come to anything because the area was declared surplus to requirements, and then, as Councillor Moran said, the council took the decision that they didn't want to do anything with that area other than put housing on it. So that's my understanding of the city.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, thanks. So, Ms. Allen, please.
Thank you.
David Harrison.